Colin is a vengeful immortal who walks the earth in search of the man who took everything from him, and he won't stop until he finally gets his revenge. One day, Colin walks up to a group of outlaws and calmly tells them that he's just looking for someone, so things don't need to get violent, but the outlaws want nothing but violence. So they all point their weapons at Colin and threaten to kill him. Colin would have preferred to avoid a fight, but since they aren't giving him much of a choice, he draws his sword and instantly slashes all their weapons and arms in half. The outlaws suddenly don't like the violence anymore and begin running away, but one of them remains and pulls out a chainsaw to challenge Colin. At first, he had thought Colin was just an ordinary bounty hunter, but now he realizes that Colin is an immortal like him. Colin takes one look at the guy and says he has no interest in fighting him since he's not the one he is looking for, and he even gives Malik the opportunity to back off and live to fight another day. But Malik insists on fighting to the death, so he revs up his chainsaw and charges forward to attack. Colin dodges the initial strike, but he gets knocked into an abandoned shopping mall, and he's starting to get fed up with Malik, so he decides to fight back and performs a single slash. Now Malik seems perfectly fine, but Colin lands with his back turned and just stands there, so we all know Malik isn't making it out of this alive. Malik starts walking towards Colin, but in the next second, his head pops off before he even realizes what just happened. Energy then begins flowing into Colin's body since he killed a fellow immortal. Afterwards, Colin heads to the town nearby to claim Malik's bounty, but before he manages to cross the bridge, he is stopped by the local militia, and they tell him he can't get into the city without a travel pass, and they are prepared to use force to stop him. They take his bag to check it for weapons, but they are shocked to find the head of Malik inside instead. Colin tells them he is just here to collect the bounty, since Malik turned out to be a wanted man, and they do pay him. But then they ask Colin to come with them since their commander wants to meet with the man who was capable of taking Malik down. Colin does feel like it, so he starts walking away, but the soldiers surround him and say he has no choice in the matter. They put Colin in their car and start driving into the city while holding him at gunpoint, and Colin isn't really putting out much of a fight, but then he sees something that catches his attention, so he knocks the gun away and uses it to take out the car following alongside them. He then crashes this car and gets out like nothing happened. This kid from the sewer saw the whole thing happen, and he's really impressed with Colin's strength, so he wants to make a good impression. But before that, he goes up to the dead soldier and starts taking his shit cause you can't let free loot go to waste. He then goes up to Colin and asks him if there's anything he wants, food, drugs, or alcohol, because he always knows where to get it. Colin would normally ignore the kid and keep walking, but he's a raging alcoholic, so he asks for the liquor, and the kid directs him to the nearest bar. There he meets a woman named Dahlia, and she saw what he did outside, so she takes an interest in him and tries to get his attention. Colin tries his best to ignore her, but she reminds him of someone he once knew, so he has a flashback and starts thinking about the Holy Roman Empire. Centuries ago, Colin was a Spartan with a wife named Moya, whom he loved very much. And he was set to fight a battle against the Roman Empire, but Moya tried to convince him not to fight because the Roman army numbers in the thousands, while his Spartans only number in the hundreds. But even so, Colin remained confident that his soldiers could overcome the odds because they are Spartans. Or at least they should be, but they got squad wiped by the Roman army so quickly that I am starting to think they were adopted. By the end of the battle, Colin was the only one left alive, so he began searching through the rubble in hopes that his wife might still be alive, but to his horror, he finds her body pinned to a cross at the top of the hill. This was all caused by the Roman emperor at the time, Marcus, so Colin swore that he would get his revenge. He eventually snaps out of his flashback, so he tells Dahlia to leave him alone, but she points out that the soldiers are still on the hunt for him. So if he doesn't come with her, then he's going to get caught in no time. Meanwhile, at the center of the city, we see a creepily perfect utopia where everything you could ever want is available, as long as it's not free healthcare. The ruler of this place is Marcus, and busy watching his lover have a death battle down in the arena because nothing is sexier than watching your girlfriend murder someone. Marcus met her a few centuries ago, and since he could sense that she was a new immortal, he pulled the spear out of her heart to allow her to regenerate and told her she must serve him for the rest of eternity, and ever since then, she has been by Marcus's side. Seeing her has Marcus bricked up at the moment, so she's about to give him some hawk tool action. But all of a sudden, they are interrupted by a call from the soldiers. They inform him that the man he asked them to capture has escaped, but they will search the entire city until they find him. The woman asks if Marcus wants her to go help with the search since she's a lot stronger than any of the soldiers, but Marcus wants to finish where they left off. While the soldiers comb the streets in search of Colin, Dahlia leads him underground to the hideout for all the people who can't afford to live in the utopia. As they walk, they come across the local doctor while he's attempting to treat a little girl, but sadly, there's not much he can do since she has caught a deadly virus. A vaccine exists to counteract the virus, but the only way to get it is to be a citizen of the Utopia, so he says she's not going to make it past the next few days. Dahlia leads Colin back to her house and tells him to make himself comfortable while she gets herself ready. However, Colin knows she must have some ulterior motive for bringing him here, so he tells her to tell him what it is, otherwise he's going to leave. Dahlia gets desperate and pleads with Colin to stay because she needs his help. The virus has been spreading a lot lately, so the people here are going to die if they don't get their hands on the vaccine soon. Colin doesn't see a reason why he should care though, so he walks away. Dahlia runs after him all the way back up to the surface and begs him to reconsider, but Colin says the problems of this city have nothing to do with him. However, as he sees Marcus's face on a billboard, he suddenly has a reason to get involved. He demands to know where Marcus is right now, so Dahlia points to the tower in the center of the city and says he is in there, but between the advanced security system and soldiers searching for him, there's no way Colin can make it in there. Not unless he has someone to guide him, and it just so happened that Dahlia knows a secret entrance. She agrees to show Colin the way, but only under the condition that he helps her accomplish her goal of stealing the vaccine. Colin understands and says he is ready to go, but all of a sudden, they run into Joe, the kid from earlier, and he had heard that they were sneaking in to get some vaccines, so he wants to help. Dahlia immediately tells him he can't come since this is way too dangerous for a kid like him, but Colin doesn't seem to mind Joe being here as long as he doesn't cause any problems. Joe promises to do his best to stay out of their way, but literally 10 seconds later, he starts causing problems. The watch he looted from that dead soldier had an alarm on it, so it started making a lot of noise and attracted a giant sewer gator. Colin tells Dahlia and Joe to run, so the two take off, but while trying to jump across some fallen rocks, Dahlia accidentally falls into the water, so she's pretty much gator food at this point. But at the last second, Colin jumps into the water as well and slices the gator's head off in one clean swing. Thanks to him, Dahlia is alright, so they keep heading for the secret entrance and eventually come across an exposed air vent. Dahlia looks through the vent to make sure the coast is clear before they jump down, but there are a couple of guards down there, so they may be stuck waiting for a while. However, Colin isn't a fan of the stealth option, so he crashes through the vent and immediately slices up all the guards in the area because they can't sound an alarm if they are dead. The group then makes their way over to the research lab, and Dahlia points a gun at the scientists to get them to comply. She tells them that they are just here for some vaccines, so if the scientists hand them over, then no one gets hurt. The scientists are hesitant to listen to her orders, so Dahlia fires some warning shots all around the room to scare them into compliance. In the process, Dahlia happens to shoot the glass of a containment chamber, and all the scientists start freaking out and pleading with her to stop because if that thing goes viral right now, there's no telling how many people it will die. While the scientists were freaking out, Joe managed to find the fridge where the vaccines were kept, so Dahlia gives him her bag and tells him to put the vaccines in there, but for now, she's more focused on what the scientists said about that thing going viral. The scientists explain that there is a perfect virus in that room with a 100% infection rate and a 100% mortality rate, so if it gets out now, they'll all die. Dahlia is confused and asks why they would have a virus even more dangerous than the one that's already spreading, but then she realizes that the scientists are the ones who created the virus that killed most of the people in the city. The scientist tells her they were just following orders from his boss, but all of a sudden, an alarm is sounded, meaning the building is being put on lockdown to capture them. Dahlia tells Joe to hurry up with the vaccine since they have to go, but as they are trying to escape, Colin senses Marcus nearby, so he ditches Dahlia and Joe and gets in an elevator to chase after him. Ever since Marcus killed Moya, since they are both immortal, Colin has been chasing him to the ends of the earth. He chased him down on the day the Roman Empire fell and cornered him in his room, but Marcus was just a chill guy who didn't really give a frick, so he casually picked up his sword and began slicing Colin's up. Even though they are both immortal, they can still be injured, and if your head is sliced off, you'll still die even as an immortal. Marcus was just about to cut Colin's head off to finish him for good, but he was interrupted by the rest of the soldiers that came to destroy Rome, so Marcus was forced to flee for now. After that, Colin spent the next millennia searching every battlefield in the world for Marcus. Through the wars of the samurai era, the wars of early America, even World War II. In World War II, Colin finally spots Marcus in one of the enemy planes if he doesn't even hesitate and jumps straight onto the plane's wings to fight Marcus. Marcus is amassed by how persistent Colin is, but he doesn't think Colin stands any chance of beating him since all Colin has is a sword, and Marcus has a gun. However, through all the wars Colin has been in, he has gained a considerable amount of skill. So as Marcus fires his gun, Colin blocks the bullets with his katana. The plane they are on ends up crashing, so both of them fall to the ground and crash through the roof of a church. Colin was badly injured by the fall, so he can barely move, but Marcus on the other hand seems perfectly fine. Marcus picks up Colin's sword, but as much as he would like to finish him off here, this church counts as holy grounds, and there are rules against immortals killing each other in holy ground. He tells Colin that he's really lucky. Since Colin managed to survive today's battle, Marcus asks him if he can just stop chasing him around since he's starting to get sick of it. It has been 2,000 years since Marcus killed Moya, so he tells Colin to just get over it already. Over the past dozen centuries, Marcus has learned all forms of art, he can speak 52 languages, and he has amassed a vast amount of wealth. Yet Colin is still out here, single-mindedly seeking revenge and still as broke as he was the day they first met. He tells Colin they can make a truce and go live their separate immortal lives, but Colin refuses to give up until he has gotten revenge for what Marcus did to Moya. Back to the present, Colin finally makes it up to the top floor where Marcus is waiting for him. He was expecting Colin to show up sooner or later, and now that he's here, he plans to finally end Colin's sad immortal life. Colin attacks Marcus, but Marcus is still way out of his league in terms of combat ability, so Colin is missing every single strike he throws. The fight eventually leads out onto the roof of the tower, and Marcus is having so much fun toying with Colin that before he realizes it, he knocks Colin straight off the roof and to the ground. He's a little disappointed that he failed to finish Colin off yet again, but he's not too worried about it, since he knows Colin will come back eventually. Meanwhile, as Dahlia and Joe are about to escape the tower, Colin comes crashing down in front of them, and to Dahlia's horror, she realizes he is dead. But a second later, Colin wakes up and grabs her ankle and tells her he is still alive, so she carries him back to the hideout. Along the way, Colin falls unconscious and has a dream where he takes a moment to think about his life. He has spent so long trying to avenge Moya that he failed to realize that Moya has been with him all along. Even though she died back then, she has reincarnated several times over the past few millennia, and currently, she is reincarnated as Dahlia. Colin eventually wakes up and finds himself back in the hideout with all the people staring at him. They are amazed by the fact that Colin came back to life after such a fatal injury, and while some fear him for his immortality and more look up to him because they see him as their savior. Now that they know that Marcus is developing a virus to wipe them all out, they can't afford to stay in hiding any longer, so they all ready themselves and head out to take the fight to Marcus. However, as they head out into the streets, they realize that Marcus has already sent forces to patrol the streets. Colin is the only one who stands a chance at defeating Marcus even if he has lost every single fight he has had with him. So the others say they will hold the army off while Colin goes to fight Marcus. Since the previous secret entrance has been compromised, the only way for Colin to get to the top of the tower is through the construction yard, but this place is full of soldiers. For once, Colin tries his best to maintain his stealth, but even though he did a good job sneaking onto the lift, he is immediately spotted by Marcus's girlfriend who comes flying at him in a helicopter. All Colin has is a sword, so he's not equipped to deal with a chopper, but luckily, Dahlia shows up and headshots Marcus's girlfriend, so the chopper crashes. Marcus' girlfriend is also immortal, so the headshot won't keep her down for long, plus the other soldiers are starting to catch up, so she tells Colin to get to Marcus while he can. Once Colin makes it up the tower, he sees Marcus in the middle of his arena, and he is about to release the virus, but for the sake of fun, he sets it on a 2-minute timer instead to give Colin a chance to stop it. Colin draws his sword and attacks Marcus, but he still can't manage to land a single hit on him, and the timer is ticking. Eventually, as the virus is about to be released, Colin gives up on protecting himself and tries to go for the virus bomb instead, so Marcus takes the opportunity and stabs Colin while his back is turned. Colin managed to make it to the bomb, but it was too late as the virus has already been released, so one by one, people began to die as the virus spread. Dahlia is devastated when she realizes this, but all of a sudden, she gets stabbed in the back by Marcus's girlfriend. Marcus's girlfriend mocks Dahlia's mortal life and asks her what it feels like to know she's going to die, but if Dahlia is going to die, she's at least going to take this bitch out with her, so she grabs a grenade and shoves it in her mouth, blowing her immortal head off and killing both of them at the same time. Colin can sense that Dahlia has just died, and knowing that she was the reincarnation of Moya, he is devastated that he couldn't protect her yet again. He gets back up and locks in on Marcus, because this time for sure, he's going to take him out. The two clash swords one last time, and through the force of Colin's will, he cuts through Marcus's sword and beheads him, releasing a massive wave of immortal energy that destroys the deadly virus. Thanks to Colin, the people of this city have regained their freedom, and with Marcus finally defeated, Colin is left with no goal to strive towards, so he leaves the city on a journey to figure out what to do with the rest of his immortal life.